His hand closed on her arm with the force of a steel trap. To the three men who had cornered her in that dark alley, the plan seemed perfect. The woman was small, dressed in a blue nurse's uniform, an easy target. The leader smirked, a cruel glint in his eyes. "Hand over the bag and the phone, nurse. No funny business, and nobody gets hurt." But his words died in his throat. His grip had pushed her uniform sleeve up, revealing something that didn't belong in that scene. There, on her forearm, was a tattoo. It wasn't a flower or a butterfly. It was a symbol. An insignia rarely seen outside the most brutal combat zones in the world. The criminal's smirk faltered, replaced by a shadow of doubt. A chill ran down his spine. He didn't know exactly what the symbol meant, but he felt in his bones that it wasn't a good sign. In that instant, he made the mistake that would define his last conscious moments. He hesitated. To understand the clinical violence that followed, and the fatal error that man had just made, we need to go back 12 hours, to the beginning of Nurse Clara's longest shift. That day in St. Jude's emergency room had begun like so many others, with the smell of antiseptic and the sound of a constant beeping that seemed to be the soundtrack of anxiety itself. Clara moved through the chaos with a calm that many mistook for detachment, but it wasn't distance, it was focus. A focus forged in places far louder and more desperate than this one. She saw everything that morning. A car accident that brought in an entire family. The ambulance siren a scream tearing through the city. Clara worked on the child, a 6-year-old girl with a nasty gash on her forehead, whispering words of comfort as her nimble, precise hands cleaned and sutured the wound. She had a gift for calming fear, her voice a balm for pain that even paracetamol couldn't touch. Later, it was an elderly man, Mr. Henderson, a regular patient with a weak heart and an even weaker solitude. He held her hand, his thin, papery fingers trembling. "You remind me of my daughter," he whispered. Clara smiled, a genuine smile that warmed her eyes. "I'll take care of you, Mr. Henderson. You're not alone." For Clara, nursing wasn't a job, it was a mission. It was a form of penance, a way to balance the scales of her life. Every life she comforted, every pain she eased, was a weight she lifted from her own soul. The afternoon brought a different kind of challenge. A man in an expensive suit, whose wife had suffered a minor finger cut opening a can, stormed into the emergency room demanding immediate attention. He yelled at the receptionist, calling her incompetent, his arrogance filling the small space. Clara approached, her body positioned not to block, but to create a calm barrier. "Sir," she said, her voice low but firm, "I understand your concern. Your wife will be seen shortly. Yelling at my colleague won't speed up the process, but it will certainly stress your wife out more." The man, taken aback by her calm authority, was speechless for a moment before grumbling and backing away. She didn't threaten him, didn't raise her voice. She simply changed the dynamic of the situation. It was a skill she had practiced countless times. By the end of her shift, exhaustion finally caught up to her. Her feet ached, her back burned, and the emotional weight of the day hung over her.
She changed out of her scrubs into jeans and a simple t-shirt, pulling her jacket sleeves down to cover her forearms. It was a habit, an unconscious gesture to hide a part of herself that didn't belong in this world. She just wanted to get home, have a warm cup of tea, and sink into silence.
That's why she decided to take the shortcut. The street was dark, lined with brick buildings with windows that looked like empty eyes. A single street lamp flickered intermittently, casting long, dancing shadows that turned trash cans into crouching monsters. The sound of her footsteps echoed, strangely loud in the quiet. A shiver ran down her spine, an old warning instinct stirring. She ignored it, blaming tiredness. A mistake. They emerged from the shadows as if born from them. 3 men. The leader, taller, with a smug grin and dead eyes. The second, thinner and nervous, moving like a startled rat. The third, a silent brute whose presence seemed to absorb the little light there was. They formed a triangle around her, cutting off any escape route. Fear came, a cold knot in her stomach. But like a trained soldier, she didn't allow fear to turn into panic. Panic was a luxury she couldn't afford. Her mind entered a state of hyper-awareness. The world slowed down. The voice of her old instructor, Sergeant Marcus, echoed in her mind, as clear as if he were beside her. Breathe, cadet. Fear is just information. What is it telling you? Fear was telling her they were 3, she was 1. They were bigger. They were confident. Their arrogance was a weapon, but also a weakness. She assessed the environment, the brick wall, the asphalt, the dumpster. Everything was a variable, a potential weapon.
The leaders stepped forward. Hand over the bag and the phone, nurse. No funny business and nobody gets hurt. He saw her scrubs, the universal symbol of care and compassion, and interpreted it as weakness. It was his first mistake. Clara didn't respond. She remained silent, her body relaxed but ready. Her stillness irritated him. He wanted fear, wanted pleading. "Are you deaf?" he growled, taking another step. He reached out to snatch the bag from her shoulder.
His hand closed on her arm with the force of a steel trap. The grip pushed her jacket sleeve up, revealing the skin of her forearm and what was etched upon it, the tattoo. It wasn't a flower or a butterfly. It was an insignia, an angel with outstretched wings, superimposed on a red circle, the symbol of the United States Air Force Para-Rescuemen, the PJs, the elite of combat medics. The criminal's smirk faltered, replaced by a shadow of doubt. "What the hell is that on your arm?" he muttered, confusion breaking through his tough facade. He didn't know what the symbol meant, but he felt in his bones that it wasn't a good sign. In that instant, he made the mistake that would define his last conscious moments. He hesitated. For Clara, that hesitation was a green light. The world exploded into action. The nurse was gone. The operator took over. Sergeant Marcus screamed in her mind, "Contact! Contact! Contact!" The man still held her arm, a tactical error. He had anchored himself to her. Clara spun her body, not against the grip, but with it. Using his arm as a pivot, she moved inside his guard. With her free hand, she didn't punch. It was faster, more clinical. Her fingers, rigid as a spear, struck the man's brachial plexus, a nerve bundle in the shoulder. The sensation was like lightning. His arm went numb instantly, his hand opening in spasm, releasing her. He gasped, the shock paralyzing him. It was enough time. Clara continued the fluid motion, her elbow rising and striking his jaw with surgical precision. The sound of impact was dry, sickening. He crumpled backward like a felled tree, hitting the ground and lying motionless. One down. The other two were frozen in surprise. The thinner, nervous one overcame the shock first. Fear made him make a stupid decision. He pulled a knife. The blade glinted under the streetlight.
Sergeant Marcus whispered in her memory, "A weapon changes the equation. Close the distance." The man lunged, the knife in a clumsy arc. Clara didn't retreat. She advanced, moving inside the knife's effective range. With one hand, she deflected his armed arm. With the other, she grabbed the nearby metal dumpster and shoved it with all her might into his legs. The impact of metal against his knees made him buckle with a cry of pain. The knife clattered to the ground.
Clara didn't stop. A precise strike to the back of his neck, and he joined his friend in unconsciousness. 2 down. Now only the brute remained. He looked at his 2 fallen companions, then at Clara, his expression a mix of disbelief and fury. He didn't make the mistake of lunging. He was big, and his strategy was simple. Brute force. He grabbed her, trying to use his weight to pin her against the brick wall. It was like trying to grab smoke.
Clara used his momentum against him. She ducked, positioning her hip under his center of gravity. With a move that was pure leverage, she hoisted him and projected him over her shoulder. He flew through the air, the surprise on his face almost comical, before landing with a dull thud on the asphalt. The air rushed out of his lungs with a wheezing sound. 3 down. The street fell silent again.
The adrenaline began to subside, and a tremor took over her hands. But the operator was not yet done. She approached each of the men. With the same efficiency with which she had neutralized them, she now assessed their injuries. The first had a dislocated jaw, the second a bruised knee, the third likely some broken ribs. No one was in life-threatening danger. Her training as a nurse now took over. She placed the first in a recovery position, checked the breathing of the second.
Only then, with the situation under control, did she pick up one of their cell phones from the ground and call emergency services. "I need an ambulance and the police." Her voice was calm, professional. 3 men, assailants, needing medical evaluation. When the police arrived, they found a scene that defied logic. 3 large injured men groaning on the ground, and standing beside them, a small nurse, her face pale but her eyes steady, explaining the situation with clinical clarity.
One of the officers, a grizzled veteran, looked at the men, then at her. His eyes landed on the tattoo now clearly visible on her forearm. He recognized it. A slow nod of respect formed on his face. "PJ, huh?" he said more to himself. "Haven't seen one of you in a long time." At the police station, Clara's story began to unfold. She wasn't just a nurse. She had been Staff Sergeant Clara Evans, an Air Force pararescueman. For 6 years, her life was jumping from helicopters into combat zones to rescue wounded soldiers under enemy fire. Her mission was to go to the most dangerous places on Earth to save lives. She had seen the worst of humanity, but also the best. She had held the hands of dying men and brought others back from the brink of death.
The tattoo on her arm was not a symbol of violence, but of salvation. It was an oath that said that others may live. But war takes its toll. The sound of explosions, the loss of friends,
The weight of deciding who lived and who died, all of it haunted her. She left military service to find peace, to use her healing skills in a place where she didn't have to carry a weapon. She became a nurse to continue her mission, but on a different battlefield. She wanted to forget the operator, to just be the healer. That night, in the darkness of that alley, her past and present collided violently. The story spread through the city. The nurse who neutralized 3 criminals. She became a local legend, a reluctant hero. But for Clara, there was no victory that night. There was only sadness. Sadness for being forced to open a door she had worked so hard to keep closed.
A few days later, Mr. Henderson, her elderly patient at the hospital, held her hand. "I read about you in the newspaper," he said, his eyes shining with admiration. "You are a very brave woman." Clara smiled, but the smile didn't reach her eyes. True strength, she thought, was not in her ability to harm, but in the control she fought to maintain every day, the choice to be a healer in a world that so often pushed her to be a warrior.
The fatal mistake of those men was not just failing to see the tattoo. It was failing to understand that the hands that can heal most gently are often the same ones that were trained to break most efficiently, and that a person's true character is not defined by their abilities, but by the choices they make about when and how to use them.
Clara's story reminds us that greatness and the capacity for overcoming challenges reside in the most unexpected places, often hidden beneath the surface of appearances, and that true strength is not the absence of fear, but action despite it, and the wisdom of when to wield the power we possess. If you were moved by this journey of resilience and the discovery of Clara's true character, please like this video so more people can find this powerful message. And to not miss any of our upcoming inspiring stories of courage, honor, and unexpected twists, subscribe to the True Character Tales channel and hit the notification bell. Join our community as we continue to uncover the secrets of the human spirit. Thank you for watching.